My husband's personality completely shifted after I got pregnant, and now I don't even recognize the man I married. The plastic stick was sitting on the edge of the porcelain sink, two distinct pink lines mocking the carefully constructed, child-free rhythm Leo and I had spent the last 8 years building. It was June, the air in our apartment was thick with the scent of rain and the sound of our 2 dogs, Barnaby and Scout, wrestling in the hallway. I stared at that test and felt a cold wave of genuine terror wash over me. It wasn't that we didn't want this, we'd been married for 3 years and had always talked about a family, but I knew Leo. I knew the man who dug his heels in over the smallest things. I knew the man who would argue for 45 minutes about the specific brand of organic kibble the dogs needed or the exact temperature the house should be kept at. We had spent years refining our healthy communication, which was often just a polite way of saying we'd learned how to navigate each other's stubbornness without starting a fire. As I sat there, 33 years old and suddenly a vessel for a new life, I was bracing myself for a version of Leo that I wasn't sure I could handle. I expected him to be distant. I expected him to be overwhelmed by the logistics. Most of all, I expected to be the one holding everything together, managing his anxieties while trying to manage my own changing body. I didn't want to be a mother and a babysitter to a grown man at the same time. By the time the morning sickness hit in the first trimester, I was prepared for the worst. I was prepared for the "could you keep it down?" or the "is it really that bad?" comments that you see on every pregnancy forum. Instead, the shift happened almost instantly. One Tuesday morning, I was slumped on the bathroom floor, the world spinning, when I heard the hum of the vacuum. Leo had never been the unprompted cleaner type. Usually, chores were a negotiation, a trade-off, I'll do the dishes if you handle the laundry situation. But suddenly, the house was just done. I'd walk into the kitchen to find the dishwasher emptied. I'd go to scoop the litter box, something I'd dreaded having to remind him was now his responsibility for safety reasons, and find it already pristine. He didn't say a word about it. He didn't ask for a thank you or a gold star. He just stepped into the gaps I was leaving as I tried to survive the bone-deep exhaustion. I remember looking at him across the living room as he folded a mountain of towels, and I felt like I was watching a stranger. A very kind, very efficient stranger. As we moved into the second trimester, the stranger became even more unrecognizable. My appetite was a chaotic landscape of sudden, desperate needs and immediate aversions. I felt like a burden, a walking list of demands. One night, around 11 p.m., I mentioned, almost as a joke, that I would kill for a specific type of spicy miso ramen from a shop 3 towns over. I expected him to roll his eyes or offer me some toast. Instead, Leo was already reaching for his keys. He looked at me with this intense, quiet focus and said, "Whatever you want to eat, whatever time of day, just put in the order and I'll make it for you, or I'll go find it." He wasn't joking. For the next 3 months, he became my personal chef. He'd be in the kitchen at 7 a.m. sautéing spinach because I needed the iron, or standing over a hot stove at midnight because I'd developed a sudden, inexplicable craving for homemade pierogies. The stubborn man who used to refuse to change the TV channel if he got to it first had vanished. In his place was a man who seemed to find his entire purpose in making sure I was fed and comfortable. Now, here I am in the 3rd trimester, and the intensity of this change has reached a point where it actually makes me weep. I'm 33, I'm heavy, my ankles are swollen, and I feel like a planet orbiting a sun I don't deserve. Leo has evolved into this incredibly gentle, hyper-aware version of himself. It's reached the point where even the animals notice. Barnaby and Scout, who used to be my shadows, are now constantly glued to his side. They sense the calm he's radiating. But the most true life drama moment of this entire experience happened just last week, and it's what finally broke me. It had been a brutal day. The winter air was icy, the sidewalks were death traps, and I felt like every bone in my pelvis was being slowly pried apart. I came home from a doctor's appointment and, in my clumsiness, knocked a full carton of milk off the counter. It shattered. White liquid and glass shards went everywhere, under the fridge, into the grout, all over my favorite maternity leggings. I didn't even try to clean it. I just sat down on the kitchen chair and started sobbing. Not a delicate cry, but a full body, the world is ending wail over spilled milk. The door opened 5 minutes later. Leo walked in, saw the carnage, saw me, and didn't even pause to take off his coat. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't sigh about the mess. He just walked over, knelt in the milk, and put his hands on my knees. Eve got it, Maya. Go to the bedroom, take those off, and just breathe. Eve got it, Leo said softly. I retreated to the bathroom, feeling like a failure. I started running a bath, wanting to just disappear into the water, but our water heater is ancient. Between the load of laundry had started earlier and the general cold, the water coming out of the tap was barely lukewarm. It was the final straw. I sat on the edge of the tub and just gave up. A few minutes later, I heard the stove clicking. Then the sound of heavy pots being moved. Leo appeared in the doorway, steam rising from a massive stock pot. He proceeded to boil 3 separate pots of water on the stove, carrying them back and forth to the bathroom to manually heat my bath until it was perfect. He didn't complain about the extra work or the fact that he was still in his work clothes. When the tub was finally hot, he left and came back 5 minutes later with a small wooden board. Had put together a full, pregnancy-safe charcuterie board, pasteurized cheeses, grapes, crackers, and sparkling cider, and set it on the edge of the tub. You're doing the hard part, Leo said, looking me in the eyes. The least I can do is make sure the water stays warm. I sat in that bath, eating cheese and listening to the sound of him scrubbing the kitchen floor, and I realized that I had spent 8 years worrying about the wrong things. I had been so afraid that the real him was the stubborn guy who argued about pet food, but the pregnancy had stripped all that away to reveal someone I hadn't fully met yet. He's already a father. He speaks to my belly every single night before we go to sleep, and our daughter, our little girl, responds to his voice instantly. She kicks the second he puts his hand on my bump. It's like they already have a secret language, and I'm just the lucky person who gets to witness it. Even when we go out now, I see it. We'll be at a cafe or walking through a park, and other little girls, toddlers, will just stop and stare at him. There's something about his energy now, this steady, emotional rock-solidness, that draws them in. He holds my hand on those icy winter walks like I'm made of the most fragile glass in the world, not because he thinks I'm weak, but because he refuses to let me slip. When I look in the mirror and see the stretch marks and the weight gain, I see a body that is tired. But when he looks at me, he makes me feel like I'm a masterpiece. He tells me I'm beautiful with every pound I gain, and for the first time in my life, I actually believe it because I can see it in his eyes. I'm sharing this because I spent so much time on Reddit reading the horror stories. I read about the husbands who cheat when the wife gets too big, the partners who refuse to change a single diaper, the men who become hyper-controlling or completely disassociate because they can't handle the reality of a crying infant. I was so prepared for a nightmare that I almost missed the possibility of a miracle. I want people to know that you don't have to settle for fine. You don't have to accept a partner who makes you feel like your pregnancy is an inconvenience to their life. The right person doesn't just help out. They transform. They realize that while you are growing a human, their job is to grow a sanctuary for both of you. It's a long, scary, and sometimes lonely adventure to find a partner who will boil pots of water for your bath at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday, but they are out there. Leo isn't a saint, he's just a man who decided that being a partner meant more than just sharing a last name. As I wait for these last few weeks to tick by, I'm not scared anymore. I'm not worried about the sleepless nights or the blowout diapers. Because I know that when the baby starts crying at 3 a.m., I won't be reaching into the dark alone. I'll be reaching for a man who has already shown me, in 1,000 small ways, exactly who he is. And I've never been more in love with a stranger in my entire life.